We felt overlooked. Maybe it's as simple as being in school and you're the last person who gets picked for the team, or maybe it's something else. You get overlooked for the job promotion, you get overlooked for the promotion, you get overlooked for the scholarship, you get overlooked for this or that or any other thing. You get overlooked for the situation. See, Jesus has time for people that everyone else overlooks. If everybody looked at Jairus and this woman, they would have said, Jesus, you're better off spending your time with Jairus. He's the one who's more important here. But Jesus, he came for the sick. He came for the hurting. He came for the broken. He came for the messed up, the people like you and the people like me. So here he is. So Jesus is over there talking to her. They're just like chatting, having a good time. They're bonding, They're having a beautiful time together. Oh, this is great. She's thanking him. And it says in verse 35 of Mark 5, it says, while he was still speaking to her, messengers arrived from the home of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue, and they told him, your daughter is dead. No use troubling the teacher now. Everything just came crashing down. Everything came crashing down. It says, your daughter is dead. Now imagine what's going through Jairus' mind and everybody else's mind, right? Your daughter is dead. I love this next line, verse 36. But Jesus overheard them and said to Jairus, don't be afraid, just have faith. But that third word there, overheard, right? Jesus overheard them. What does that imply to you? That implies that Jesus isn't even really next to Jairus right now. Like Jairus is over there. Jesus is over here having a conversation. And you ever overhear somebody? It's like you're eavesdropping. Like you're not in the conversation, but you kind of hear them. And somebody says, your daughter is dead. And Jesus, he hears it. He overhears it. And he's like, hey, Jairus, don't be afraid. Just have faith. I mean, like think of like the contrast of what's going on here. Like Jairus is like, what do I do now? Should I mourn or should I be excited? Like what do I do? He's saying to have faith. They're saying my daughter's dead. Everybody must have gasped. How could Jesus have let this happen? How could Jesus have been so careless? How could he have let Jairus' daughter die like this? So this all implies Jesus is off to the side. And he was first, he was important, but now he's on the sideline. And his daughter was sick, but now she's dead. And many of us, we face interruptions in life. We face sicknesses. We face death of loved ones. We face, layoffs at work. We face failing out of school. We face difficulties. And for Jairus, life came crashing down in this moment. And you can imagine the if-onlys. If only Jesus hadn't stopped, maybe the daughter would still be alive. If only this woman hadn't come up and interrupted Jesus, maybe we would have seen an amazing miracle happen. If only this woman didn't interrupt. And Jairus risked everything for this, and now his daughter is dead. Well, we all face interruptions in our life. We all face difficulties, don't we? We all face these things. We all face setbacks. But in your notes, our problems are not too big for God. That's good to know. That our problems are never too big for God. And that Jesus doesn't panic, right? Jesus doesn't panic. Like in the middle of the situation, they're like, hey, Jairus, your daughter's dead. Stop bothering the teacher. And Jesus is like, hey, man, hey, what does he say? Don't be afraid. Just have faith. He doesn't say, oh, my goodness, I screwed up. I should have went, I'm so sorry, Jairus. I should have got there quicker. I'm sorry. He's like, no. He's like, no. He's like, don't worry. Be happy. He's like, don't worry. I got this. Don't worry. Have faith. It's going to be okay. Don't worry about this. Here's the thing. I believe that Jesus sees the situation you're in right now and is saying the very same thing. Don't worry. Don't be afraid. I got this. Have faith. It's going to be okay because I'm here with you. See, Jairus, he forgot for a moment that he's in the crowd with Jesus, that Jesus is literally right there. Then, okay, so let's go on. Verse 37. When Jesus stopped the crowd, this is just interesting to me. Jesus stops the crowd and wouldn't let anyone go with him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. And so 9 of these disciples, in other words, I kind of think that it's like they're running security now. Jesus is like, you stay here, keep the crowds away. Just keep everybody back, right? They're kind of giving us a hard time. Just keep everybody over here. Peter, James, and John, let's go. I don't know why he picked them. Maybe it's because they were the ones that had enough faith to see a resurrection. I don't know. He says, Peter, James, and John, you guys come with me. He says, when they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw much commotion and weeping and wailing. He went inside and asked, why all this commotion and weeping? And it's interesting. It's like they're already weeping and wailing. Like, we don't know how long this journey was. Like, she might have been dead for a little while, but they were pretty quick in getting, family and friends. They'd even have professional mourners that would come in that would mourn for the death of someone. So they're in there, they're weeping, they're wailing. And Jesus is saying, why all this commotion and weeping? The child isn't dead, she's only asleep. And it's kind of like a weird and kind of like a, I don't know, kind of disrespectful thing to say, Like, somebody just died and Jesus comes and says, like, don't worry, she's only asleep. Well, you can imagine the response right then. It says the crowd laughed at him. They stopped their crying. They started laughing at Jesus. And then he made all of them leave. He's like, everybody get out. Then he took the girl's father and mother and his 3 disciples into the room where the girl was lying. And holding her hand, he said to her, Talitha Koum, which means little girl, get up. It's interesting how they put the actual words in there that he said. Not translated. As I said, Talitha Koum. He says this to her, little girl, get up. Very likely the same thing that her father would say to her every morning when it's time to wake up. Talitha Koum, little girl, get up. And Jesus saying, little girl, get up. And the girl, who was 12 years old, immediately stood up and walked around. And they were overwhelmed and totally amazed. People were laughing at him. People were laughing at him. And he goes in there and says, little girl, get up. Jesus steps in and changes everything. Everything changes. In your notes, Jesus changes any situation he's invited into. See, he was invited into the situation and he changed. Something I just noticed for the first time, and it's not like super profound or anything, but I just thought it was kind of cool. Said there, the girl who was 12 years old immediately stood up and walked around. She's 12 years old, right? The woman with the issue of blood, how long she had her issue of blood? For 12 years. I'm like, wow. Like, imagine that. Like, almost the same time this girl was born, this woman started hemorrhaging blood. And for 12 years, she had been hemorrhaging. And this girl was living that entire life in 12 years. And in one day, Jesus did a miracle, and he healed them both. He healed the woman. He brought the girl back to life again in a supernatural way. He interrupts the interruption. Like Jesus had been interrupted, and all these interruptions were layering, and Jesus is like, I'm going to interrupt the interruption here. And he speaks over her, and he speaks life. He says, little girl gets up, and she gets up. And I believe that God is speaking over your life now, and he's saying, don't worry, I want you to believe. Don't worry, I want you to get up. I want you to have faith. Get up. Trust me that I am in the situation, that I'm going with you. Now, this doesn't mean that every sickness is going to go away. It doesn't mean that every dead person is going to resurrect. But it does mean this, that God's got this, that he is in control in the situation, that he is there with us, that he is in the situation, that he knows the situation, that interruptions are not too much for him. And interruptions do not overpower God. No interruption can overpower God. God is never caught off guard by the situations that we face in our life. The things that catch you off guard never catch God off guard. It does not get in his way because he is in control. When he sees the situation, it's not over yet. See, Jairus, this is the thing. Jairus could have walked away when that woman interrupted his plan. Imagine that. He's like, oh, you know what? Oh, you're too busy for me now? You know what? I shouldn't have come here in the first place. He could have left. He could have left as soon as he found out his daughter was dead. He could have been like, Jesus, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. You were no help. He could have left there. And if he did, he would have missed the miracle that Jesus had planned. Many of us, we face interruptions in life, and we're frustrated by the interruptions. We're frustrated by the disruptions. We're frustrated by the inconvenience, the troubles, the things that are coming at us. But instead, maybe we need to keep our eyes on Jesus and just trust as he's saying to us, just keep strong. Don't worry. Have faith. Just believe. See, Jesus went with him. Jairus wasn't doing this on his own. He wasn't alone in the situation. His life was disrupted, but he was with the person who was greater than the interruption itself. He was with the one who could interrupt the interruption. When interruptions happen, when disruptions come, don't rely on yourself. Because in your notes, you may be able to control your situation. I'm sorry, you may not be able to control your situation, but you can control your response to it. You might not be able to control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it. You can control how you react to the situations in life. And here, Jairus, in the situation that he was in, certainly he was frustrated. Certainly he was probably angry. Certainly he was hurting and broken inside. But he chose his response, and he continued on with Jesus. He could have allowed himself to get lost in panic and lost in fear and lost in doubt, but instead he listened to the words of Jesus, which was, just keep on trusting. Just have faith. It says in 2 Corinthians 5:7, it says, for we walk by faith, not by sight. Had Jairus walked simply by sight, it would have just been another death. But he walked by faith. Do we walk by faith? Faith, not in an outcome, but faith in a Savior. Faith in Jesus Christ. Well, yeah, I got this. No. You don't got this, but God's got this. God's got this. He's bigger than the problems that we face. It's not about you because you can't handle it on your own. I can't handle it on my own because I'm not strong enough and you're not strong enough. But greater is he that is in me than he that's in the world. The same Spirit that rose Jesus from the dead, the same Spirit that rose this girl from the dead is the same Spirit that is alive and living inside of each and every one of us. Man, that is something to rejoice about. So even in sickness, we can have trust. Even in hardship, we can have trust. Even in the interruptions, we can trust him. Has fear and doubt come against your mind? Does your life feel like it's being interrupted and you don't know where to turn? Can we listen to the words of Jesus where he says, don't be afraid, just believe. Don't worry about this. I got this. See, we can choose to trust. We can choose to believe. We don't have to be afraid because God hasn't given us the spirit of fear. He's given us power and love and a sound mind, and we can rise above the interruptions. We can rise above these things that are coming against us. And when the interruptions come, we don't have to focus and fixate on what is interrupting, but we focus and fixate our eyes on Jesus, knowing, hey, if I'm with Jesus, miracles happen, and I don't know the outcome, but I know that he's there with me. He's there in the valley of the shadow of death, even in the darkest days. He's with me. His rod and staff, they're with me. They comfort me. He's guiding me, and I'm going to stick with him regardless of the situation, and that's what Jairus chose. He chose to walk in faith, and as we go through our lives, whatever it is that we're facing, whatever depression, whatever hardship, whatever addiction that we may be facing, instead of putting our eyes on those things, let's keep our eyes on Jesus, the one who can look at this girl and say, little girl, get up. And I believe he's telling each of us to get up, to stand up, to rise above these things that are trying to hold us down, because he is the resurrection, he's the life, and he's the one who can breathe life into our weary bodies.